Okay, we are live.
Okay, this is the May 4th regular meeting of the BET. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Mayor Rilling, Mr. Abrams,
Here.
Ms. Brown,
She was here.
I think she has to
I
be
think she's-
unmuted.
I think she's technical,
You
yeah.
need to do *6 to unmute herself, I guess.
Larry, can you please unmute the phone number 754?
Yes. Okay.
I'm here.
Thank you. Chairman Camacho,
Here.
Mr. Freer, Mr. Jelleret,
Here.
Mr. Kasimis,
Here.
you have 5 present, you have a quorum.
Okay, so we have a quorum. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of, there are actually 3 sets of minutes, March 2nd, April 22nd, the special meeting of April 22nd, and the public hearing also of April 22nd. So beginning with the minutes of March 2. Do I hear a motion? To approve the
Move
minutes?
to approve.
So move Brown.
Motion.
Okay, it's been moved. Are there any changes to the minutes, additions, deletions, corrections? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes of the March 2nd regular meeting of the BET, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, the motion carries and the minutes for the March 2, 2020 regular meeting are approved. Moving on to the April 22 special meeting of the BET. Motion to approve.
So moved. This is Troy.
Okay, Troy moves. Are there any changes, additions, corrections? All right, hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes of the special meeting on April 22nd, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. The special meeting minutes of April 22, 2020.
I had abstained. I wasn't there.
I'm sorry, who abstained?
Me, Artie.
Oh, Artie. Okay, so Artie abstained. With that abstention, the motion carries. The April 22 public hearing minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved. Troy again.
Okay, Troy moves. Any corrections, additions, deletions? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor of approving those minutes, April 22 public hearing minutes, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? And I assume Artie abstains, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So the public hearing minutes of April 22, 2020 have been approved. Next item on the agenda is the special appropriations agenda. And there is a resolution in connection with that item. Madam Clerk, I understand that the last line that reads grades K through 3 actually should read grades K through 8. With that change, would you mind reading the resolution?
Special capital appropriations totaling $1,642,470 to increase the available funds in Board of Education capital project number 09-205010-C0112 instructional technology for the purchase of e-tablet computers for students and teachers in grades K through 8.
Okay. this point, the mayor sent over something to me earlier this afternoon with respect to that item. And I just want to read it into the record. It's from the mayor. He writes, I am fully supportive of the 1.6 million special appropriation for the Norwalk Public Schools to purchase additional Chromebooks and tablets. I applaud Norwalk Public Schools and all of the hard work and planning that went into creating a distance learning model, which has been lauded across the state. This is a good investment since we do not know what the future holds and how COVID-19 will continue to impact Norwalk. There is a real possibility schools could be closed for extended periods of time again. While much of the future is unknown, we do know that our young people are the next generation of leaders. It is incumbent on us to make sure they have the tools and resources they need. Regards, Harry W. Rilling, Mayor of Norwalk. Having read that into the record, do I hear a motion in connection with that resolution?
So moved for the special appropriation, Brown.
Brown and Kasimis moved for the special appropriations.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Is that for this year or next year?
that is for this year, I believe.
So are we short this year?
Yes, apparently we are short this year. Henry or Angela, would you like to speak on that?
Artie, could you explain what you mean when you use the term short?
In other words, are we not, are there not enough laptops out there, Chromebooks for the kids right now? And if not, how are they getting online?
Yeah, maybe it would be helpful if I provided some background information. I don't mean to interrupt, Henry. If you want me to jump in, I'll be prepared to do that.
No,
Right?
Tom, I think the question is more substantive and operational rather than financial. So please.
Okay, so I'm Tom Hamilton. I think most of you know me. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the school district. We also have here with us Ralph Valancisi, who is our Director of Technology and Partnerships, and also Barbara Meyer Mitchell, who is the chair of our Finance Committee for the board. So I'll start out and then I'll ask Ralph to talk a little bit more about some of the details, and then maybe ask Barbara to finish up with sort of summing up the request. As you know, obviously, we're in really unprecedented times for all of us, and in particular, very unprecedented times for the school system to move 12,000 students, or nearly 12,000 students, to an effective distance learning environment with literally just a couple of days notice was a massive and major undertaking on the part of the school district. And I think by all reports, the school district has really accomplished really amazing feats in undertaking this and doing it really quite well. So the district started with some technology, and certainly out in the schools, but not what we refer to as one-to-one technology, meaning not enough. We didn't have enough devices to supply every single student with one device, but we had quite a few devices on carts and so forth that were actively being used in the schools. And that was certainly a very good thing, because it meant we've got teachers by and large who are familiar with technology, and students who are familiar with the technology we're using. So we certainly didn't have to start from ground zero. We also were independentely rolling out a one-to-one model at the high school level, and had gotten several grades into that. So I think had gotten, Ralph can speak more about this, but I believe we'd gotten the 9th and 10th graders one-to-one technology, and we're rolling that up one grade at a time. And so basically what we did was we originally went out, we did notify, the superintendent notified the mayor that there was a need for the district to procure additional technology. On the backup that we have provided to you, the first two items there were for Chromebooks, for 500 Chromebooks and then 1,500 Chromebooks. Those Chromebooks were purchased essentially right the day we were going to distance learning, so we could roll out devices to all of our students starting, I believe, in grade 3. And again, Ralph can correct me if I'm wrong. So with the devices we had on hand, plus with those additional 2,000
It was
devices.
grade 4, Tom, yes, but yes.
Oh,
you're
grade
right.
4, I'm sorry, grade 4 to 12, plus with those 2,000 additional Chromebooks, we had enough devices for those students. What we didn't have was devices for the younger students. And so the second half of this request is to purchase those devices so that we can use them during summer school, which we are anticipating there's going to be great additional demand for more summer school this summer because of the fact that we believe that students to some degree, particularly students who were otherwise at risk of falling behind, they have likely fallen behind a little bit further. And so we're anticipating needing a more robust summer school and having more students in summer school. And then we're also planning for the possibility and the likelihood really of a really very different learning environment, perhaps through all of next school year or at least part of next school year, because of the fact that we expect social distancing will continue to be a requirement. We may have to have a hybrid model that has fewer students in the school at any one time than we are accustomed to having. In other words, we may not be able to put 24 students in a classroom. We may only be able to put 10 or 12 students in a classroom. So we may have sort of a hybrid learning model that is partly distance learning and partly on-site learning. And of course, there's also the possibility that if the virus comes back in a more sustained way and we end up in the kind of situation that we've been in for the last, it feels like it's what, 2 months at least now, that we need to be prepared for that. So for all of those reasons, we need to buy touchscreen devices. And so the younger children, a Chromebook is not the right device for them because they're not at the age where they can effectively use that. So there are different devices that we need for those students. And so this request largely funds those additional devices and some other technology related expenses, some iPads for special ed students and the like. So Ralph, maybe you can talk a little bit more about the specific items we're using and how we're using them in the classroom.
Yeah, no, definitely. Tom, you covered that overview very well. But yeah, so what we're really looking at implementing right now is, as Tom had mentioned, we have grades 4 on up moving forward. The Chromebooks there are going to backfill now grades 2 and 3 currently, which next year will be grades 3 and 4. So those are the Chromebooks that you're seeing here that we're actually filling in at the moment, making sure that every student grade 3 on up to 8 will have a Chromebook. Grades 9 through 12 will have laptops, and that is through a donation that we're receiving. And then we were talking about really the majority of this, that the the 2700 Dell 3190s that you see in there are really grades K through 2. And we're going with a touchscreen Windows device. A lot of times at this age level, you may be hearing about a lot of students using tablets. What we realized was, as we move forward, and this is really getting into our next normal, and I think digital learning is going to change a lot over the next couple of years. But one of the things we realize with this is that it's not only important to make sure that the student has a device that makes sense, but it's a device that the parent can use with the student. So the idea of a tablet actually can be would be prohibitive without a keyboard. And by the time you had the keyboard in and try to manage iPads at home in comparison to these other devices, which are touchscreen and serve the same purpose, they would have the same applications as we would get on an iPad. It makes more sense to kind of go with the Dell 3190s. They're actually a better price. They're easier to manage. So that's how the decision was made, is we want to make something that was more family friendly that also allows then for the ability for parents to be able to work with students. And the remaining amounts that you're seeing in there are really backfilling right now a lot of our teacher needs to be able to have devices, because many of them have desktops, which are older, and we've been doing the replenishment. We will move forward though now. We won't be buying really any more desktops in the district. We will just be buying laptops as replacements for teachers. Once again, this is the next normal. They need to have a device that they can move with them. If they do need a larger screen at times, we'll make sure that we can provide that over time with them so they have a bigger screen in the classroom, but they need to have a device that they can actually work from home if they have to for an undetermined amount of time, as well as being able to work in the school. So I think that kind of covers most of those items. The iPads are also for our special needs students. So we do have a number of students that have special needs, and there are times when those iPads are specific to them. So you can see it's a much smaller amount, but that's specifically catered towards our special needs and students, I believe, at NECC as well too.
Thank you so much, Ralph. I'm just going to hop in as a member of the curriculum committee and explain some of the challenges that we've been facing in our first 3 phases and into the 4th of instruction. One of the bigger challenges is the cost and the logistics of assembling and printing packets. Paper packets lack the ability to be differentiated very easily. So differentiation is when you look at a classroom of kids and realize that you have differing abilities, from special needs to English language learner to gifted. And so you have to tailor your programming to the students that you have in your class. And that's very difficult to do with a packet that's produced centrally at central office and mailed to families. You probably also read in the hour that we did have some delays with the mailings, which caused children to miss a day here or there in their learning progress. So these are some of the issues that we're trying to solve by moving our process more online, so we can do small group reading and use all the wonderful apps that are available to families to further their children's learning at this critical stage. We know that if a child isn't reading and writing by 3rd grade, they're unlikely to excel in their career, because that's when you flip from learning to read to reading to learn. And we need our children to be like sponges, in love with learning. And this is a tool that allows that to happen. So thank you for your consideration.
Hey, Ralph, I think you made some really good points.
I just want to know that James Freer has joined the meeting. Just before you go, Artie, I just want to know that James has joined the meeting.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry.
I just want to say I think you made some really good choices on the technology, and I applaud all of you for all the hard work you're doing and getting the online learning really working. My daughter's a teacher, and she's busy, and the kids are learning. So thank you, everybody.
If I can make one mention too, just like a shameless plug, we have a provider that's been working with us very hard too as well, Altice, locally. We've been connecting our computers, and up to now they've been actually providing for free public Wi-Fi access wherever we can have that available. That was a big game changer. So just not for nothing, but if you are talking to anybody and understanding that they've been a wonderful community partner for us making this really happen. We couldn't have done it with hotspots alone. So.
Okay. So.
Ed, I have a question. This is Troy.
Yes, go on, Troy.
Henry, on the financial side, can you walk us through how this is this like the other special appropriation we did with the ESL students? Can you walk us through the accounting here?
Sure. The difference is originally we looked at this through their operating budget. And I've decided with the capital expenditure that we're talking about in sum of $1.6 million with devices that are going to have a useful life of more than 1 year, it's more appropriate for these items to be worked through the capital budget side. So what we're doing is we're taking the 400,000, the original allotment, plus the 1.2 million additional for the K through 3 grades, the total of 1.6 million, and running it through the capital budget. Because of that, we are proposing a special budget adjustment to this line item to allow for the capital expenditure of these funds.
Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Troy?
Thank you.
Ed, I have a question.
Yeah. Yeah, go.
Is it okay? I have a question regarding the technology for Mr. Valentisi. Is it possible that we may have families who don't have internet access? I mean, I think we all assume that everyone does because it's such a, you just think everybody's got internet access. But if we do have families who don't, how are we enabling their children to learn?
So the way that we've been able to do that, and we do have families that don't have internet access. I mean, I think a little more than we actually expected from our initial standpoint. And that's why it's so important that we provide these devices. What we've been able to do with the devices that we provided up to now is each device has something called a MAC address. It's kind of like its own serial number. We've been able to give that to Altice so that they can automatically register it, our devices, so those Chromebooks that have gone home, so that they connect to the public Wi-Fi here in Norwalk. And once again, they've done that without parents or anybody having to call in to set up accounts or anything of that sort. But we are going to be looking at that, and we actually have a survey that we're putting out to parents too as well. One of the questions on that survey is again to check how many actually don't have internet access. And it's one thing to have internet access. It's really important to understand that, we really need broadband access in order to be able to deliver like this. And I think that's one of the next normal pieces that we see. And hopefully nationally, we start to look at, I know that I've been having conversations with other CIOs around the US on advocating around the idea of broadband almost becoming a utility in time. And I think that we really need to move to that in that direction in order to make this efficient for everybody. But sorry, I mean to get off the topic, but yes, but we do have parents that don't have access in town. And we've been able to provide them with that through the help of Altice.
I've got a question for you,
Thanks for
Robert.
that.
So that the last item on the supplemental technology list, where it says additional hotspots, is that something of what you're referring to, or what are
Yeah,
those?
so there are some spots where obviously even the public Wi-Fi doesn't work. So that was kind of like the backfill of those pieces. But it really, like I said, it doesn't fit in this appropriation, and we will find a way to make that work. I mean, Tom, I don't know if you want to address that.
Yeah, I was going to address that. Henry, when Henry and I discussed this, he had indicated that the last item on the request, the 50,000, he didn't feel that he could bring that forward as a capital item because of the fact that the items just aren't big enough, or there was also in there teacher training. So I told him I understood that we were going to find other ways to cover that 50,000. So that last 50,000 item, I believe, has actually is not included in the request that's before you tonight.
Correct. I see that now. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay. All in favor of approving the resolution as amended, signify by saying aye.
Ed, can I just ask another question before we take a vote?
Oh, sure, James. Go on.
On the 2700 Dell, those 3,000 some odd tablets, or the 3190s, how much is there any home education for the students? The joke is that all these young kids know how to pick this stuff up right away and use it. But how much instruction is there available for children and parents to make these things really effective?
Yeah, so that's actually a very, very good question, and it's part of actually my focus in the district this year, and we've been putting out a new digital literacy curriculum, K-8. Of course, it didn't roll out as quickly as I'd like it because we were gone for a certain period of time, but we do use a program called learning.com that actually is aligned with national and international standards called the International Society for Technology and Education, to know what students need to learn in the sense of computer applications. So basic applications, how to copy and paste, not tied to necessarily Microsoft or Google, but just understanding the concept, understanding digital citizenship and safety, understanding how to work on resources, understanding, really the communication tools that are available to you, and understanding how to be able to collaborate online. So we do, though, that is a curriculum that we've been rolling out. And a lot of times it's delivered, in many cases at the younger grade levels, by our library media specialists, as well as we have certain enhanced curriculum teachers that do that as well, beyond the classrooms. And included with that is also an adaptive keyboarding piece that we start with the younger kids to be able to be a little bit more comfortable by the time they hit third grade.
But doesn't that assume that they're competent in those skills at this point in time? I mean, if we're going to be giving them these things immediately, is there still some room to learn that they or catch up that they may have to do?
Yes, no, I mean, definitely. We will still, and like I said, I believe that the teachers, and we're still delivering lessons in this format for our students on a regular basis.
So, but my point there, I guess, is, and maybe I'm not making myself clear, so I apologize. If I have a first grader out there who doesn't know how to log on, the teacher can be very competent, but me as a parent and the first grader don't know how to handle that. How do we address that? How does the teacher even know that my student hasn't signed on?
So
Ralph?
go ahead, Barbara, if you'd like. Yeah.
I was just going to
Let me,
share that we have.
can I stop you for 1 second, Barbara? If everyone could announce themselves before they speak for the benefit of people who are listening on phone and are not watching this in video format.
Sorry, and Ralph, apologize if I step on your toes. I totally understand what you're saying, James. We're talking about the family that maybe doesn't usually use any technology and is not aware of how to run it. All of our teachers have been checking in with our students directly by phone and can offer support. And we have a landing page of resources for families to learn about technology that Ralph and his team have set up along with the curriculum department. It is incredibly robust and has instructional videos on YouTube that you can watch on your phone to learn how to work the technology. And of course, we'll have to plan once this special appropriation moves forward, hopefully it will, we will be able to plan how we're going to ease families into it and train the teachers, train the students. That's been part of the process with all of this. We had to roll out 4th and 5th grade, and those teachers and families needed to be trained. So we've gone through this a couple of times now, and we'll continue to train families as they come into the system.
Yeah, and part of what we need to understand too, I think, with digital learning is that, the nice thing about this is, it wasn't by accident that we were able to roll out everything that we've been able to do. We've been planning and working with teachers as a whole over the last 4 or 5 years and doing a lot of professional development around understanding how to use our learning management system and use certain applications. So students, even at the younger grade levels, are familiar with logging in. It's that additional resource, you're right, of the family piece, which is once again why we're going with the devices that we're going with, so that they do have a keyboard. And we do have ways of actually working with the family, not only on a touchscreen device, to be able to make that happen. So, and we do have also professional development that we are working on and consistently changing. I mean, it's an ever-changing environment right now, but we're realizing that there's definitely places we want to increase our PD with our teachers and making sure that it's not only the student, but it's the whole family that really does have the capacity to be able to answer, especially at the younger grade levels. So we know that's actually something that we need to address. And I think that out of this whole pandemic, that's one thing that people are starting to realize a little bit more, is digital learning is not what we originally had thought digital learning was. And we're adjusting for that as we move forward. Part of it is making sure that we have the devices, though, and the accessibility in order to kind of get us to that point.
Do you have scripts already put together that are going to help teachers to walk parents and
Yeah, so
students through?
if you want to, I can even send you the link to our parent resource page. We've actually done videos in Spanish as well as in English on how to use Google Classroom, how to log into ClassLink, which is where they actually access all their applications. And so they're accessing that on a regular basis. It's on our Norwalk PS site. On the main page, there's a blue button, I think over on the left-hand side. If you clicked on it, you'd see that there. And we're also posting other things for families to understand too, to keep them engaged with students, like virtual field trips and other areas. So
Do you have metrics that you can go back and measure how effective this is?
So I think the way that we do that is actually looking at the K-8 curriculum. So we can measure the student metrics, which is what we will do through learning.com in this coming year as we're implementing it. There are actually assessments, formative assessments that go along with the curriculum. So we'll be able to kind of look at those.
So Ralph, is that looking at how the students perform versus whether they're understanding or using the tools? So in other words, are you testing the students and saying, okay, yes, they're at the level that they should be at, so therefore these tools are working? Is that the way it happens?
Yeah, I mean, and I think the tools are just one thing. Really, the idea of understanding the technology is making sure that they understand how to use technology as a whole. So we will be measuring that they understand how to use applications, how to be able to keep themselves safe online, so that they understand, what it means to actually have a secure password and why that's so important. So those are the items, it's the standards that we'll be measuring. And in the long run, that's really what makes more sense than the actual device. I mean, we've also got to make sure that they understand how to use a device, and that's part of what we do with the teacher.
Yeah, the device is just a tool, and we want to know, are you using a hammer or are you using a screwdriver? So, hopefully we're giving everybody a hammer and they know how to use it.
Yes, definitely. And that's where it's like going back to those standards are that what I just talked about, the International Society of Technology and Education, those standards align to that's specifically what you're talking about, is the application of technology so that you become successful in life.
Okay, I have one more question, Ed. In the schedule that we got attached to our email from Angela, it shows that what the amount is, the description of the goods and services, and then it says no less additional quotes. What does that mean? Because some of them says yes and some are no. What does additional quotes stand for? This is on page.
Yeah, the
page 14.
quotes are the items where Ralph and the IT team went out and solicited additional quotes. I think the one where you hadn't solicited additional quotes was a standing contract that you already had in place with one of the vendors, I think for the Chromebooks, that was based on I think it was based on was that based on the CREC or the state?
I think it was based on the CREC state contract, if I remember correctly.
The CREC state contract, and that was the vendor that you have used or are currently using for Chromebooks.
Excuse me, can everyone please state your name before speaking? There are people listening on a phone and they can't tell who is speaking.
Yeah, that was Tom Hamilton. I apologize. Hopefully you can now attach my name to the last set of comments.
And that was Ralph Almzisi, also from the board.
And that's Jim Freyer asking a lot of questions. And I guess, so how many quotes did we get for the Dell 2700 Dells?
I believe we had received 3. I have to go back, Tom, and check. I apologize. I don't have it in front of me, and I know Dave, our IT director, would. But we ended up going with the lowest quote. But they were also on state contract on top of it, so on the correct contract.
They're on the state contract, or they have a state contract?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is Tom Hamilton again. So as with the city itself, the Board of Education is allowed to piggyback on existing state contracts or other regional contracts, consortium contracts, and the like. So both of these, or all of these items fall into that category. But then in addition to that, Ralph's department got additional quotes on the Dell units, I believe.
Okay. Anything else?
I have another question.
Yes.
Artie Casimas. Ralph, how many students is represented at K through 3?
You're on mute, Ralph.
Sorry, it's K2 is 2,700.
How many?
K2 is 2,700. It's, yeah.
K through 3, isn't it?
No, so K through 3 teachers, K through 2 laptops for the tablets. Third grade, they start using Chromebooks. So those are in the Chromebook allocation.
Correct. No, because I counted 5,120 units. Am I correct?
5,120. It probably sounds about right for, yeah, because you're covering really K through 4 when you think about it, because you've got third and fourth grade in Chromebooks, K through 2, and then you've got the teacher laptops in there. Yep.
So my question is then, how many do you have in reserve? Are you allotting about a 5% reserve?
So one of the ways we're getting the reserve for the Chromebooks is we are actually going to be able to pull some of those because of the donation that we've received from the Dalios from the high schools to be able to backfill for this next year. They're less than a year old, so we'll be able to reuse those machines as our backup right now. We're trying to be as efficient as possible. So.
And how many machines is that we received from Dalio, from the Dalio Foundation?
They are giving us 9 through 12, so I want to say it was in the upwards of about 3,800. Sorry about that.
Gotcha. Okay. Is there anything else?
No, that's good. Thank you. Thank you, Ralph.
Once again, all in favor of the resolution as amended, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? I guess abstentions. The motion carries, and the resolution is the resolution as amended has been is approved. Thank you all, the Board of Ed. The next item on the agenda is a transfer item. The Health Department, I believe. Transferring $40,000 from contingency to security. Is there someone from the
This is a request. This is a request for the Health Department to add security personnel, and Lamont Daniels is here from the Health Department to explain the transfer.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Lamont Daniels. I am the Chief of Community Services, and the Health Department is one of the departments that falls under my jurisdiction. I'm here tonight to share the need for security at the Health Department. At present, there is no security at the Health Department, and since I've arrived, there have been several instances where clients unwarranted behavior, and I'm requesting a need for security to have a presence in the actual Health Department. One, to ensure the safety of our employees, and two, to ensure the safety of the clients that come in. As you know, the Health Department does vaccines. They have the WIC program that all require clients and individuals to come in and out of the building. We also do our childhood immunization program, our school physicals. We also test for STDs and other programs that require people to come in the building, while we ensure that support is given to all clients. There have been instances where we also had to call the police in the area. So I strongly believe having security presence will help minimize and mitigate that. The allocation is $40,000. This is actually for a part-time security officer, and what 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 Dan and I have done is looking at when and where we will have a high need for public interfacing. So we're actually looking at having security during those times as a result of this request.
Okay. Are there any questions? James, you're muted.
Is this related to COVID-19?
No, in fact, actually, this was pre-COVID 19.
So is this included in the operating budget for 21?
Not at present.
So how come? If this has been a problem for a while now, when we went through the budgeting season, shouldn't it have been included?
Yes, I agree. And this was brought to my attention, which is why I'm here today. Prior to me being on board, I wasn't aware of this. I felt very strongly that I would like to present it to you all so we can have security in the building moving forward under my leadership.
Henry, this is coming out of contingency, theoretically. Is this only until the end of this fiscal year?
Lamont, is this through the end of the year? What is this for?
Well, yes. So right now I am requesting to have security, and I will need to work with the department head to see how we can continue to fund this position as the health department provides the service to our residents. So I will be looking to talk further about how to maintain this presence moving forward.
So the 40,000 is until the end of this fiscal year, correct?
Actually, no, this is from June for the new fiscal year. That's what you're referring.
Oh, this is for the new fiscal year.
Right. So this person wouldn't start until this is approved July 1.
So wouldn't that impact our cap?
Yes.
So I'm sorry, I just want to clarify, Lamont. So if this is for next year, does this amount cover the full fiscal year from July 1, 20 to June 30, 2021?
Yes, for a part-time based on the services where we have public inside the building.
Okay, so the response to the questions is that this is a modification of the budgets we've shown before for this coming fiscal year. And we are recommending, because we're at the final steps, we're recommending taking it out of contingency for next year and moving it to the health department's line item for security. So the total amount spent for next year will not change. We will have less of contingency available.
I got you. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, but this says it's for the 1920 year. Transfer.
Can I interject? Can I interject for a second? This is Angela. Angela Fogel, Budget Director. My understanding would be that this would be encumbered in the current fiscal year. We have $500,000 left in contingency, and because it's encumbered in this fiscal year, that amount in the health department budget would be rolled forward to cover the encumbrance for the period of July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021.
So in summary, we're using this year's funds, this year's budget in contingency where we expect to have that amount available, roll it forward to pay for next year without any diminishment of next year's budget, even the contingency. Would that be right, Angela?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
This is Ed Abrams. Can we just make sure that this is clearly noted in all of our budget planning and filing so that when we start to do budget planning, not for the coming fiscal year, but the one that follows it, we recognize that this will need to be solved inside of the health department overall allocation of spend? I just don't want to lose the fact that we're taking it out of contingency now, and they'll come back in a year and tell us that they're short on budget for this position.
You know, that's fine. What we've done this year in the budget is we have looked at historical budgets as well as actual expenditures. So the fact that we are spending the money in next year's fiscal year would be shown when we prepare our budget documents for the subsequent year. And one of our questions is, if you spent it this year, how does that go for next year? Do you still need it? That sort of thing. So we should encompass that as part of our regular budgeting process, but a very good point, Ed. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry.
This is Ed Camacho. So what does that leave in contingency this year, for this year? Do you have?
I usually try not to disclose that kind of an amount.
Understood.
Because somehow, can I make a joke? When politicians see money, they spend it. So
It's not a joke. It's actually very real.
those that are not chuckling want to spend the money. So the point is, as Angela is the keeper of budget versus actual and where we are, Lisa Biaggiarelli gives us the best estimates of our tax revenues. Between Angela on the budget side and Chitsime on the accounting controllership side, we're looking, now we're in the fourth quarter, what is budget, what is actual, and how might the end of the year look? As Angela said, we had about 500,000 remaining in contingency, and we expect quite a bit of unexpected expenditures, maybe related to COVID. So we're managing that carefully.
Okay. Any other questions? Can someone?
Ed, I have a quick question. This is Troy Jelleret.
Yeah, Troy.
Ron, I'm just curious. You said this wasn't COVID related, but are you seeing so you're saying you're not seeing any frustration from the Norwalk residents going to the health department regarding getting testing or anything of that nature?
Right. So the health department is not a testing site, but in regards to, right. So I'm sorry.
Or getting questions answered about how they could proceed with the COVID. I mean, they might just feel it might go there first. That's your call.
No, you're absolutely right. So right now, we're most of the city properties are closed. So people are calling. However, we're all anticipating for this May 20th to hear what the governor says. But as we eventually roll out what that will looks like, people will be coming to the health department. So now with this new COVID, I feel very strongly about the security because we will utilize them to help assist and manage kind of the frustrations, to your point, around coming to the building or asking for assistance, whether it is directly a Norwalk City Health Department issue or it's a private provider. So in this way, the building is secure because right now the building doesn't have a security presence there. And as I mentioned, we will still need to do our school physical exams. We will still need to do our vaccines. We will still need to do our STDs. Those programs will continue. I believe that this COVID-19 is going to just add an additional layer, to your point, drawing traffic to the health department, which is why having a presence there will kind of help delay frustration and disgruntled folks at the door.
Good, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, this is Ed Camacho again. It dawned on me that I don't believe that, I think we had a discussion before a motion was made in connection with this item. Do I hear a motion to approve? If there's no more discussion, do I hear a motion? With
I'll make a motion.
So moved, Troy. This is Troy.
All right, Troy already moved. There being no more discussion, all in favor of approving the transfer, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries and the item has been approved.
Thank you very much. You'll have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lon.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is, and I guess I'll just take them in order of how they're listed in the agenda, although that may not be the best approach, depending on how long these things are. But the first item is adoption of the tentative fiscal year 2021 operating budget. Either Henry or Angela.
Do you want to move it first, or?
Yeah. Let's move the item.
So moved. I move it, Troy.
Okay.
I'm not sure how many more times I can say the same thing, but we've tried to fund all the departments with the adequate funding for them to provide the level of services that we all agree upon. At the same time, we had an objective of protecting next year's budget, we've set aside $5 million to allow us for contingencies related to COVID, either revenue shortfall or unexpected expenditures. And that's net after any reimbursements we might receive. And then the third goal was to try to keep the mill rate increase as low as possible to accommodate our citizens, because we know there are some very severe economic impacts that we're all facing, and we're trying to hold the line on them as well. So we think we did that. Part of that was an $8 million drawdown of the fund balance. We utilized the timing, which allowed the increase in the grant list, which occurred after we started the budget process. So we've reviewed this before. We think it's a very solid budget in the face of many, many uncertainties. So those were the goals, but at the same time, we must remain flexible. And with everyone's support, we appreciate you moving forward.
Henry, it's Ed Abrams. Just for the record, the numbers we see in tonight's package are in no way changed or altered from any of the numbers we reviewed in the prior packages, correct?
Do I have to swear?
Putting it on the record.
If they were, you have to look at Angela. But I'm going to say, I don't know, what is this, the 38th version? Yes, these are the numbers that I presented, that we presented last month. There have been no changes, and we're ready to move forward. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other questions? All right. All in favor of adoption of the, I'm sorry? All in favor of adopting the tentative fiscal year 2021 operating budget as presented, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Abstentions? The item carries. The fiscal year, the tentative fiscal year 2021 operating budget has been approved.
Thank you very much. My understanding, and I apologize for my ignorance, this is my first time through a budget process. So that means you are recommending the budget and recommending the mill rates as proposed based on that budget.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
I believe something needs to be signed. Angela, will you be sending something over? You're on mute.
Sorry, this is Angela Fogel. Yes, I will prepare the transmittal letter. It will be signed by Chairman Camacho. That will be sent to all of the Common Council members. If the Common Council does not change the cap, then on June 1st, the BET will approve the final operating budget and mill rates. And at that point, Lisa has a form that each member of the BET will sign so she can prepare the mill rates for the tax bills to be delivered.
Okay, thank you, Angela. Appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is approval of the 2021 Parking Authority budget. Mr. Brescia? You're on mute. You're on mute, Dick. There you go.
I'm on you.
You were, now you're not.
I'm not. Okay, thank you. Dick Brescia, Chairman of the Parking Authority. I thought I'd add something to the cover letter I sent, saying that we were going to stay with the budget that we had submitted originally. I want to go back. It seems like 4 years, but it's really to December. I met with Henry and Angela to go over our budget and to also pick his brain. And then to share with him that the Parking Authority had established some objectives that they had for what they wanted to do with the money for the next fiscal year, the one that we're talking about. And I explained that one of the things we were going to do during the year was to come back to the BET and the council and say, we wanted to use some of the fund balance that we had built up to invest in things that would help economic development and that would help the city of Norwalk and the people who come here to park. Things like a circulator or the possibility of a new pathway from the Yankee Doodle Garage into Wall Street. Had that conversation with Henry. He had some good suggestions for me. Had that same conversation in January with the mayor, and again told him that we had plans for the reserve fund that we have, the fund balance, and that we were going to come back to you folks in the council during the next fiscal year, once the parking authority had decided what they wanted to invest in, and make the request to use that fund balance. That seems like 100 years ago. We now know how that fund balance is going to be used, which is one of the reasons why we didn't change the budget that we had. For the last 2 months or so, April and May, we have suspended all costs for parking in Norwalk, and at some great expense to us. But one of the things that we could do in the parking authority was to deal with the financial impact of the COVID. And so we decided to remove that barrier of costs for the people who do park. We're evaluating a way to rebuild, and I'll let Catherine talk about that a little bit as we go forward. But like everyone else here, we don't know what the future holds. We do know that we're meeting every month twice to evaluate where we are and how we can best serve the people of Norwalk. Catherine, why don't you fill in on what we have in the budget there?
You're on mute, Catherine.
My name is Catherine Hebert. I'm Director of Transportation, Mobility, and Parking. Just to go back a little bit, in February at the Parking Authority meeting, they approved a budget for 21 compared to fiscal year 20 of a minus 0.32%, which was $7,320,748. That budget was made with assumptions related to some assumptions for revenue and expenses based on multi-year activity and demand in each facility, as well as seasonality. One of the things that I want to just bring to your attention on that budget that changed, the state of Connecticut, starting in January, requires collection of sales tax on parking fees and revenues, including the railroad stations and violations, which it did not before. On the budget that was approved in February, that meant that sales tax submission to the state of Connecticut would have been around $400,000, which was an increase compared to last fiscal year of $182,756. Obviously, all of this has changed now with COVID and the budget and the sales tax submissions to the state, especially when we're looking at substantially decreased revenue collections and reduced expenses, focusing on essential services. So like Mr. Brescia said, that in response to the governor's and the mayor's stay-at-home policies and business closures, the parking authority suspended fees through the end of May and enforcement. They have reviewed 3 options through September. They have not made any decisions on that yet. So it's through this fiscal year 20 and the first quarter of fiscal year 21, looking at a slow recovery, ramp up of fees, as well as substantial reduction in expenses covering essential services. So that's all I'm going to say about that now, if there's any questions. One more thing, they haven't revised the budget that they approved in February, because like we were all talking about, we really don't know where things are going to land, but they are looking at this twice a month.
Okay.
So that's what I have.
Are there any
Catherine,
questions?
this is Jim Freyer.
Gotcha.
When the parking fees were suspended, are there personnel that were laid off or furloughed?
39% of yes, 39% of the parking team were furloughed.
How does that offset against some of the lost revenues? Is it
And there were also expenses that were delayed. So in general, between what they were looking at between when the fees and the enforcement were suspended through September, it was close to $1 million worth of expense reductions.
okay? And what related to how much in revenue do we lose?
If comparing it to the budgets, current year budget and next year's budget, it was about $2.5 million. Just budgets, yeah.
Okay.
Catherine, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Henry Dackwood, CFO. You were talking about state sales taxes.
Yeah.
Is that just the flow through where we charge them for the people who are using the spaces and then we flow them? We should be neutral, right?
We are neutral, yes.
Okay.
We don't, no, that's an expense that the parking authority subsidizes, I guess.
Right, so.
Part of their expense, it's not passed on.
Pass it along.
Correct.
If we're not charging anything, there is no sales tax. So, you know, it's a processing thing, but it doesn't have any financial impact.
It is part of the parking authority's expense budget.
But the point is, but that's revenue coming in also. You're charging for it.
Right, so when the parking authority's revenues come in, expenses go out.
But the point is, it's not an expense without an equal and opposite revenue. The two go hand in hand.
Right, I guess we're not talking the same thing. We don't charge, the sales tax is not a charge over the fees to the public.
So my question is, so the users of parking facilities are not paying the tax and we are paying the money for the tax?
That's a policy that the parking authority decided, yeah.
As opposed to adjusting the parking fees accordingly?
Right. That's their policy. Yeah, there could be, like, for instance, there could be a charge over and above the fees for the sales tax, but the parking authority has chosen to absorb that expense.
This is Ed Abrams, though. Clarification, please. I understand that the parking authority has chosen to absorb the expense, but it's paid on actual utilization rates, correct? So if 100 people park, you're going to pay sales tax for 100 people. If only 50 people park, you are only going to pay sales tax for 50 people. You're not prepaying sales tax based on estimated parking revenues, are you?
To come up with the budget, we looked at actual revenue collections related to those extra yeah. So what you're saying, yes. So yeah, related to the railroad station collections and the parking violations, which were not collected before. And yeah, we had to make an estimate for the budget, but yeah, go ahead.
For budget purposes, I completely understand that.
Okay.
But in terms of actual payment, we're not making actual payment on anything other than actual parking revenue.
Correct, yes. So in actuality, yes, if someone pays $100 for a permit or $10 to park, we are paying for that utilization, correct?
Okay, thank you.
And Catherine, what's the sales tax on, let's say, a parking permit of $100? Is it?
It's whatever the sales tax is, a
almost 6.5%.
Yeah.
If you were to charge that back to the consumer, that would be a parking permit of $106.
Right. So it's a policy that the parking authority would have to discuss.
Yeah, it's shown as a reduction of revenue. So It's not revenue that we're, we're not paying it. We are paying it. It could be a straight expense from us. We're not grossing up the fees to the Parker.
James, whether you look at it as a reduction of our revenue.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I'm just reciting what it says here.
No, what I'm getting at is originally I asked you, Catherine, whether that was a pass-through. When you pay a ticket to a stadium and they say sales tax, one collects it and then remits it. Here, we set our parking rates in one method, and then this change at the state level has increased our expenses unless and until the parking administration decides to pass along those costs.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
I think it's very generous on the part of Norwalk to pay the sales tax for our citizens.
Let me say something. James, this is Dick Brush it isn't the city of Norwalk that's making that decision. It's the parking authority.
Right.
And the parking authority made that decision because we thought it would be in the best interest of the customers that we're trying to bring in at the normal time for the restaurants and the stores in both Sono and the Wall Street area.
Gotcha. Okay. And that obviously is being revisited. I'm sorry, this is Ed Camacho. That's being revisited year to year or?
Yes. Yeah, that's a dynamic. And we made that decision before any of this COVID hit the entire marketplace.
Right. Okay.
Kathy, is that sales, is Troy Gellard, is that sales tax apply to the violations?
Yes, starting January 1st of 2020, the state of Connecticut passed the regulation that sales tax would be applied to the revenues collected at the railroad stations and on all parking violations that we didn't have to pay sales tax before on those two collections.
So, I mean, this works now because you have a positive fund balance, but with these kind of numbers in your revenue, paying a 5%, 6% tax on these numbers are going to obviously be an issue going forward if we don't make any adjustments to the way you guys handle this, I guess.
I think that's on target. We always review things. When we made the decision with a very healthy fund balance and a very healthy financial situation.
What would this is Jim Farragon. What would we have to do to just change this for this year's budget then, or for next year's budget? What's involved in changing that? That's your decision to change it?
It's the authority's decision, right? Ultimately, or not ultimately, but it's your decision to make, and then the BET to approve at some point. Is that the way it works?
Yeah, the budget that we submitted and that was approved, we decided to stay with that, the one that you had a preview of earlier in the year. And the reason is that we knew that we would have to go into the fund balance to cover the dramatic losses that we were going to have in revenue and not put any impact on the city to try to bail us out. We were going to try to take care of our own business and evaluate how we can move forward.
This is Jim Farragon. Do other municipalities pay the sales tax on behalf of the Parkers?
Some do, some don't. There is no good comparison on the way municipalities handle their parking operations and management. Everybody, they're set up differently. We're set up as a parking authority and enterprise fund. Other municipalities are governed under the police department, under the mayor's office, under public works, and they all operate very differently. And some do charge their citizens and others don't. So it's really up to each municipality how they want to approve or handle that policy.
So, I mean, it's like $400,000 that we're going to pay in sales tax next year, or maybe less because we didn't charge any.
It will be considerably less because we're doing less business on the parking.
Yeah, but still 6%, 6.5%, no matter what it is.
Oh, this is Ed Camacho. Just to be clear, this is not the municipality. This is the parking authority, which is, I suppose, a quasi municipality of sorts. So it's not that the city of Norwalk is incurring this expense. It's the parking authority.
Yeah, no, I got that, Ed. But I'm just wondering what other cities and towns in the area, what they do.
Well, I think some, as Catherine said, some cities pass along the sales tax to the customers. The Norwalk Parking Authority decided not to do that, to absorb it ourselves, that we could afford to absorb that. That was a decision we made prior to the financial situation we're running into now. So if you're suggesting as we go forward and we do adjustments on the next fiscal year, that would be a decision that we'd have to revisit on the parking authority.
I think in order to make that decision, we should know what the economic impact would be to essentially raising the parking rates by 6.5%.
I think that's what the parking authority took into account in deciding not to raise it this year, correct?
That's right.
Ed, this is Troy again. Dick, I hear what you're saying. I'm okay with what you're doing, but obviously, as you're looking at it year to year, you don't want to be in a situation where you have zero fund balance to play with, and you're coming to the city to help you out with that. That's all. That's my only point.
Yeah, well, obviously, yeah.
Are there any other questions, comments? Okay. All in favor of approving the fiscal year 2021 Parking Authority budget, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion carries and the budget has been approved. Thank you, Mr. Drescher and Ms. Hubert.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Who made the motion, Mr. Chairman?
I don't remember. Was there a motion? I think a motion.
I don't think there was one.
No? Okay. Well,
I'll
will someone
move
make
it.
a motion?
I'll move it.
Okay. James moved it. Let's just put that in the minutes in front of the vote, and maybe that will take care of it.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so this is the WPCA budget. Next item on the agenda. Is there someone here to speak on that?
Yes, Ralph Kolb. I'm the Senior Environmental Engineer for the Norwalk WPCA.
Okay, Ralph, before you start, so we won't forget, is there a motion on the item?
So moved.
Okay. The item has been moved. The floor is yours, Mr. Kolb.
All right, thank you, sir. Included in the overall board packet is a memo to the DET board dated March 26, 2020 that highlights some of the key points in the WPCA budget, revenues and expenditures. And in addition, for supporting documentation are those figures. I just want to point out the Norwalk WPCA is an enterprise fund and it manages the city's wastewater facilities. Revenues for the operating budget are collected via the sewer use fees that we charge. For fiscal year 2020-21, the budget includes a $7 rate increase for a single family residence and an overall blended rate of approximately 2% over the previous fiscal year. One of the other highlights this year, or last year actually, it was a 2-year process. We went out for a procurement for a new contract operator. because the existing contract with OMI is set to expire May 17th, 2020. And on September 16, 2019, the WPCA entered into a new contract with Suez. So they'll be taking over May 18th of this year, so about 15 days. The new contract emphasizes asset preservation, enhanced operations, and high quality effluent for the treatment plant. Something else is the current operator, OMI, has completed replacing approximately 125 pieces of equipment at the wastewater treatment plant and pump stations. Capital projects by WPCA is funded from reserve fund balance, and we have not requested any bonding for this coming fiscal year. We're paying out of cash. Looking at the revenues and expenditures, on the revenue side, we're set to receive approximately $150,000 in nitrogen credits from 2019. DEEP hasn't finalized the number, but payments typically is in August of each year. The other item in revenues, just to point out, is the city reimbursed the WPCA for support services that we provide the city. So we bill that to the city. On the expenditure side, some items to point out: operation and maintenance fee account increased to reflect the new service agreement with Suez. We have a line item that this WPCA pays to the city, and that's $586,669, and that's services that the city provides for the WPCA, such as sewer use fee billing. A couple positive notes: professional and legal services accounts have decreased due to closure of the service agreement procurement and contract closeout with OMI. And also the debt service by the WPCA has also decreased.
Okay.
Ralph, it's Ed Abrams. Just one quick question for you. As you look at the last month or two of data in this fiscal year on revenue from Norwalk customers, are you seeing any erosion to your revenue due to COVID-19? And do you expect any impact to your 2021 revenue line item for Norwalk customers as a result?
Ralph Kolb again. Ed, to answer your question, we use 2019 water consumption data to bill July 1st of 2020 for sewer use fees. So residential rates are a flat rate, so water consumption doesn't impact those fees that we collect. For commercial businesses, the impact would be seen next year when we use the 2020 water consumption data for July 1st, 2021 billing.
Understood, and forgive me, perhaps I asked my question wrong. So you're not seeing any default on payment to anybody's water bill that might affect not what you're planning on revenue, but your ability to collect that revenue in 2021?
Sewer use fees are billed twice a year. It's on the city's tax bill.
Okay,
We
thank
have
you.
the same collection rate.
Okay, forget my question and thank you. I apologize.
No problem.
Any other questions? All right, the item has been moved. All in favor of approving the 2021 WPCA budget signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. The 2021 WPCA budget has been approved. Thank you, Mr. Cole.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is appointment of auditors. Who would like to move that item?
So move, Brown.
Okay, Sherry moves the item. Discussion.
I'm happy to discuss this. We had an RFP, and as I might have mentioned at an earlier meeting, we had 3 firms that bid, one of which was our existing auditor, RSM, who had been with the city for 10 years. And during the process of the RFP, After they had submitted a written proposal, our current or most recent auditors withdrew their proposal. I was a bit concerned. I spoke to the partner in charge. He said that due to some internal changes in the firm, their firm had decided to de-emphasize their government audit practice. It had nothing to do with us in particular. In fact, he said he enjoyed working with the city, with Chitsime, the controller, and her team. They said they had some senior personnel who are leaving the firm, one temporarily for maternity leave, one maybe permanently, and then they had decided to de-emphasize this practice area, and we are not the only client that they are withdrawing from. We had two proposals, and it was unanimous by the selection committee to select Blum Shapiro as our new auditors. We have had experience with Blum Shapiro as our cybersecurity consultants, and now currently they are doing an operations review of our IT department on the city side. And their emphasis of cybersecurity as part of the audit was a very important factor as well. They are the largest independent CPA accounting, tax, and consulting firm in New England, largest in Connecticut. They have a very extensive list of other cities that they audit. I don't have it in front of me, but from memory, they have some of the largest cities in Connecticut. They also were less expensive than the other firm by a slight amount. So from every dimension, we are very pleased to select Blum Shapiro as our future auditor, and we look forward to working with them in a long, productive association.
Henry, this is Ed Camacho. According to the memo, they also audit for the cities of Bridgeport, Hartford, Stamford, and Waterbury.
As I said, other large cities in Connecticut. So they're considered a very high quality regional firm. Emphasis is in Connecticut, but throughout New England. And given our personal experience with their personnel, it was a very easy decision for the selection committee.
Okay. Before we go further into discussion, I just want to note that this item actually has a resolution associated with it that maybe as part of this discussion, do we need to read that Madam Clerk? Or is that something for the Common Council?
I don't have the full packet with the resolution.
It says a resolution or the action requested is authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a contract with Blum Shapiro Company, PC, to perform the city's annual financial statement audit for the five-year period, fiscal years ending June 30, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024 for an amount not to exceed $495,000, accounts stated. That would be the resolution. Is that something, Angela or Henry, for us to, is that an action item for this meeting?
Yes, that's an action item for the BET, and even after this contract is signed annually, the BET will have to reapprove the appointment of the auditors.
Okay. So I just read the resolution, I guess the action item of the resolution into the record. For discussion purposes, the item has been moved already. Are there any questions?
Yeah, and this is Troy Geller, and I have a couple of questions on this. I know I saw first of all, who was the third firm? I didn't see it mentioned who the third firm was. And the other thing is, it did alarm me that RSN McGladrey did not, that withdrew their bid after they made the bid. Is that what you said, Henry?
They submitted a written RFP proposal But before we got to the point of evaluating the proposals and deciding who to interview, they withdrew their bid.
It's just weird that, I mean, why would, they probably knew that they were getting out of the business, right? I mean,
When you say weird, I say highly unusual and irregular, and that's why I picked up the phone to the audit partner immediately. I wanted to know if there was anything related to the city, to our audits in any way, shape, or form, because I would agree with you, but it was a question of the timing internally to them. And what they said to me is the following: they are going through all their government clients and deciding which ones to withdraw from. And they said they picked us first because we were in the process of an RFP and there would be less disruption to us rather than with a city that did not have the RFP process already in place. Again, this is what I was told. I can only go by what I'm told.
I get it. I know these firms in bank. I banked in Connecticut many years, and I know them, these firms very well. But it's very unusual that they would go through all that work with an RFP and then pull it. But
right,
I
would add. I was then concerned about transition, and they assured me there are 3 or 4 top CPA firms, and they all trade clients, and it's not a problem. The audit partner from RSM assured me any firm that we select, they come in, they can review the audit papers, they can question them and ask them, and they will ensure that there is a smooth transition. You did ask about the third firm.
Yes.
The third firm was PKF O'Connor Davies, a national firm, large here in Connecticut and New England. I do have some experience with them. We had some special project audit work for them to do. I'm going to say between October and January, February. They did a very good job. I was very pleased with them. I was not aware that they were going to bid for the audit, but I found out later. In reality, as we have with many RFPs, any of the firms were very well qualified to serve us. We feel we picked the best.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm familiar with all 3 names, and they're all 3 very good firms.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Hearing none. All in favor of I guess it's not really a resolution, but the action item authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Shapiro and Company to perform the city's annual financial audit for the fiscal years ending 2021, 22, 23, and 24 for an amount not to exceed $495,000 accountable. All in favor of approving that item?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The item carries, and the item has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And last but not least, at least in terms of action items on the agenda, Lisa, this item has to do with approval of the 2018-2019 suspense list. Would someone care to move the item?
So moved.
Been moved by Artie and Ed. The floor is yours, Lisa.
Good evening. Hope you're all well. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good. Okay. I've submitted to you our proposed suspense list. This is actually our fiscal year 2019-2020 suspense list. So these are accounts that we have managed to target for suspense during this current fiscal year. The total is in the narrative that I gave you, 833,000 and some change. What this basically does, we do this every year. This is an oversight function that the Board of Estimate exercises under state statute. it allows us to remove from our active billing file accounts where we do not have a valid address, where an account has been discharged through federal bankruptcy court and is uncollectible, where a business has gone out of business and has no assets for us to seize, things of that nature. The vast majority in terms of quantity are motor vehicle accounts, where we have tried at least 2 or 3 cycles to submit them to the Connecticut Department of Motor Vehicles in order to have the person stopped before being able to register another vehicle. And if we are unable to have success in doing that, and we do not have a valid billing address for these people, we are asking to put them on suspense so that we don't have to continue to send tax bills to an address that we know is no good. What we usually do is we turn these accounts over after they have been in suspense. We turn them over to an outside collection agency where they do skip tracing and still try to contact folks. We do ultimately collect on some suspended accounts. It doesn't mean that we will never collect this money. It just means we will not actively try to bill it. But what happens frequently is people come back to Connecticut. They move out, but then they come back a couple of years later. They go to the department. They try to register a car. And for 15 years in Connecticut, taxes are collectible. And at that point, we will get people if they do come back. Also, the collection agency will find people that we are not able to find. So the reason why it's in front of you is because we need your oversight to make the approval happen. I am not permitted to do it myself. I need to get your approval first. And it gets filed in the town clerk's office. It's also reviewed by the auditors. And it's just a matter of public record what we do. And I'll be glad to take your questions.
Are there any questions? There are no questions. All in favor of approving, maybe we should have done this item first. Sorry to have you wait the whole meeting for this.
Oh, it's such fun.
All in favor of approving the fiscal year 2018-2019 dispense list, signified by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, the motion carries, and the item has been approved.
Thank you.
Lisa, appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Lisa.
Thank you. Everybody stay well, okay?
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the financial reports for the Oak Hills Authority. Does someone want to, but that's not really an action item, so would you, someone want to go through it with us?
Yeah, I can go through it. We have the February financials from Oak Hills, and this was pre-COVID emergency. So they were having a positive revenue experience. They saw their membership fees increasing. That was month over month and year to date. So, and their net income, they were also managing operating expenses. They had some, the maintenance, they were lowering their maintenance workers' expenditures, but they did have an increase in the operating salaries because of wage increases this year. Other than that, they were on track before everything fell apart to start paying the city their per revenue round fee, but I'm sure all of that is on hold.
Okay.
So Angela, this is Jim Frayer. I heard a rumor going around that because they've been closed, they have no revenue coming in, obviously. And so I guess it would be very difficult for them to get going again should they open soon. And there was a rumor that I had heard was that they were looking for volunteers to take over some of the jobs there so that they wouldn't be paid, but they could get things going like ranges or starters, things like that. What kind of liability does the city have, if they have any, for bringing volunteers in to do some of that work? Do we
That would
know?
be a question for risk management. I can reach out to them to see if I can get a better idea, give you a better answer to you.
And I guess then the other question would be, there be any repercussions with employees that have been laid off if we're bringing volunteers in to take their place? It just doesn't seem, it doesn't seem like a wise thing to do.
Right. I know they did lay off, the last discussion we had with them, I know they did lay off some of their staff, but I wasn't able to reach them before this meeting.
Okay.
This is Troy. I follow up with Jim. I heard those same things, and I think you need to have them come in front of us. If they need, have they asked for money? Are they short? Are they paying people? I have no idea. I mean, they haven't been open in 2 months. I notice other courses are opening, and I'm not quite sure what the plan is there with them. And I heard rumors of a new pricing schedule, so with loyalty pricing. So I don't know. Maybe we need to chat with them before too late, I think.
I received a call from Carl Dickens saying that he is looking for $20,000 because they're in arrears in payroll. And that was, I don't know if it was denied or he hasn't made the request yet, but that's what I was told.
Have they
It hasn't come to finance yet. This is Angela Fogel.
Yeah.
That request has not come to finance, as far as I know.
Okay.
And my understanding also is,
we are not authorized to grant that. I mean, I think that we would have to come to you or finance committee or something, right?
Right, yes.
And my understanding also is that a lot of there was some discussion about having the Parks Department sort of chip in and help to maintain the course so that if and when the course opens, it won't be in terrible shape. Obviously, the greens are a specialized piece of equipment and skill set, but so that I think has been part of the discussion. I hadn't heard anything about the volunteers coming in once the course opens, but that's also been, I think, talked about.
This is Henry Dack with CFO again. Regarding volunteers, I would look not just at our risk management group, but from corporate counsel.
Right.
I'd want an opinion from corporate counsel that says we have no liability. That's number one. Operationally, I don't think they should make these decisions without clearing it with our corporate counsel. Number two, regarding financial items, it seems to me the Board of Estimate reviews all of their financial maneuvers. We backstop their debt, but except for that, they're independent, but they need us for all financial decisions. I would think operational decisions, I would want Anthony Carr, Department of Public Works and Parks and Recreation, Nick, to also get involved to talk about, they can't just make assumptions on how they're changing operations and how they're changing finances. They really have to clear them with us, I would think. I mean, it's up to your decision, but I think just assuming that Parks and Rec is going to be able to divert resources when we've been hammered by COVID, where our fees and revenue, I expect some damage there, and we're expected to divert resources for them, I think that's a discussion.
Henry, I agree with you 100%. Angela, I think we need to either have them appear to us next month, or you have to have more information, because these things don't make any sense, to be perfectly honest.
I would strongly suggest requesting them to appear at the June 1st meeting. There are a lot of issues. You're talking about rumors, but they have to understand about their decision-making, that there are controls because they are affiliated with us and we have financial obligations and potential legal liability.
I agree 100%.
Is there some way that we can have them appear before the BET on the 1st of June or the first meeting in June?
Ed, I believe that the mayor made a suggestion that they come before us for the March meeting, which obviously it never happened. So
I reached out to them, but I have not heard back. I don't know if there's no one in the office. So maybe the mayor can help me reach someone at Oak Hills.
Yeah, you need to reach out to
volunteers aren't allowed to answer. Volunteers aren't allowed to answer the phone.
Artie, could you speak with Mr. Dickens to find out?
Yeah, I can contact him. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, are they closed under a state ordinance or is it a city ordinance?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's a good question because there are some courses opening, I noticed around.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. There are salary accounts, police, fire, public works, also in the information portion of this packet. Is there anything of any significance that we need to be aware of?
No, we're right on target with where our expenditures were budgeted out. We're about 80%. We're a little more than 80% through the year, and the expenditures are right around 80%. We've gotten in more than 97% of revenues. I just want to point out that even though we're on track for expenditures, we do have a $6 million fund balance transfer that we budgeted. So by design, we're going to be $6 million short. And with COVID, to me, it looks like maybe we'll be at about 6.5 million short this year, which isn't, considering the situation with the city, it doesn't seem devastating.
That's what fund balance is before, right?
Right.
That's what a rainy day fund is for.
Any other, any questions or anything else in connection with those items? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved. I take it there's nothing else that we need to address, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So all in favor of adjourning at this point?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Have a safe night, everyone, and thank you for appearing at this meeting.